Previously on Mass Effect 3, I lost half my viewership. Today, I'd like to talk about what I think Mass Effect as a whole is really about.
Commander.
You said one of your ships had gone missing?
Crashed, actually. I couldn't speak in front of the Krogan. Our ship went down on Tuchanka.
Now this update is going to be a little odd. This is two missions mashed together into one update. They're basically two halves of one subplot, and I've covered them in one update because they're kind of a microcosm of the game as a whole. They basically sum up Mass Effect 3's focus and shift of focus, as a game and as a narrative. I can see this video being a bit confusing because I'm going to chop and change a bit between the two in the first section. So here's a brief summary. Primarch Victus has a situation he wants us to investigate discreetly. His son led a platoon into Reaper-infested territory on Tuchanka to carry out a classified operation. He needs his son and his men rescued. Shepard goes down, fights through the Reapers to rescue Lieutenant Tarquin Victus, who foobarred the mission with his poor command skills. Tarquin reveals that the Turians planted a bomb on Tuchanka after the genophage, right underneath the biggest population centre, as insurance against a second Krogan rebellion. The Turian platoon was sent to disarm the bomb without jeopardising the Turian-Krogan alliance. Unfortunately, Cerberus got their hands on it first and want to detonate it. The second mission then is a battle against Cerberus in order to prevent the bomb from going off. In the end, Tarquin redeems himself for his earlier failure by sacrificing his life to ensure the bomb doesn't blow. The Turian-Krogan alliance is preserved and hundreds of thousands of Krogan lives are saved. Lots of thematic relevance there that I won't have time to talk about because I'm going to talk about something else.
We're pinned by Reaper harvesters and taking heavy casualties. Also, there are pockets of my men scattered along the crash trajectory.
Lieutenant, I need you to fire a flare so I can find your position. Got it.
Things get worse by the minute. My men are dying.
This sounds bad. Let's move.
In this update, I want to talk about Mass Effect 3's focus. That is, why we see so little of the Reaper War, and why Cerberus keeps popping up all the time. There's two ways I want to approach this. The first is mechanical. I want to talk about it in terms of game mechanics. The second is narrative, and personally, I'm worried it's going to be a bit trickier. But we'll take this one step at a time. Mechanics first.
Shh. Sam, quick. We don't want them to call for backup.
You can't really tell from these videos, but we spend a lot of time in this game fighting Cerberus. I mean, even more so than you can already see in the videos. So far we've had 3 missions against Reapers, and this is our 4th. By the end of the video, we'll have had 5 against Cerberus. Roughly half the missions in the game involve fighting Cerberus, not that much under the number we spend fighting Reapers. Also, I haven't shown you these before, but there are about 6 very short side missions based on the multiplayer maps scattered throughout the game. 5 of these 6 side missions are against Cerberus. Only 1 is against the Reapers. There is a third enemy faction in the base game, Geth, that will show up for the Quarian arc in the second half of the game. They're a non-entity. We fight them about 3 times. That's nothing. But for a game ostensibly about the Reaper invasion of the galaxy, that's supposedly the climax to 3 games worth of build-up about the Reapers, we don't spend a lot of time actually fighting them. Mass Effect 3's gameplay is really fun in general. I really like the gameplay, it feels really good. With the increased pool of skills, melee actions and new movements, rolling and switching cover, I, as a player, have a lot of options. I've got lots of things I can do, lots of ways to respond to combat situations, and they're all very accessible. You know, I can just use tech, I can just hit, I can just grab from cover. It's right there, and it's easy and it's simple to use. In contrast, Mass Effect 2 is a little slower, a bit more limited in what you can do. Mass Effect 2 doesn't have tech combos, where you use 2 different tech powers on one enemy to do massive damage. If you've ever seen me shoot a dude with a freezing bullet, then incinerate him to make a huge white explosion, that's a tech combo. Mass Effect 2 didn't have any of that, it just had biotic combos, which are kind of hard to set up because you had to remove an enemy's armour and shields before you could use any biotics on them. Mass Effect 3 is a lot more lenient in contrast. You can often still do tech combos on big enemies like brutes and Atlas mechs, even though they still have armour or shields. And that's more fun. You have more options straight away in a fight. That's better. There's better interplay between your choices on the strategic level as well. You have a greater selection of weapons. Each has a different weapon weight, which affects how often you can use your powers, and that's going to be more or less important for you depending on your class and your playstyle. Cooldown is very important for aggressive vanguards and lone adepts, but not so important for soldiers. What I'm trying to say here is that BioWare put a lot of thought into the gameplay of Mass Effect 3. It's clear that, for them, the shooty bits are just as important, if not more so, than the talky bits. Compared to Mass Effect 2, where they were still kind of working things out, or Mass Effect 1, where they either didn't care or didn't understand what makes a good third-person shooter. Personally, I prefer Mass Effect 2. I like the difficulty, I like the hard counters and heavy punishment for getting caught out in the open. I know lots of people like Mass Effect 1's combat, where it seems the goal was to use weapon mods and biotics to find ways to not have to play the shooting game. That leaves me kind of cold myself, but that's just me. What's clear is that Mass Effect 3's combat is the most developed, most polished, most interesting in the series. So with this focus on having good gameplay, on having enjoyable shooting sections in your third-person shooter, then it's reasonable that BioWare would make enemy design and enemy selection for combat encounters a priority. The Mass Effect 3 demo that shipped before release had 2 single-player sections. The first was the prologue on Earth, fighting Reapers, quite short. The second was a lengthier section based on the Surkesh mission against Cerberus, a lot longer, largely just showcasing the combat and skill system. Also, there was a multiplayer component as well, a stripped down version of the multiplayer in the final game. If you haven't played it, and you should, it's just a 4-player co-op wave-based horde mission. Survive 10 waves against a specific enemy type, occasionally achieving mini objectives for extra points. Really, really, really fun. Well worth trying no matter how much you hate multiplayer games. But in the demo, there was only one enemy type available. That enemy type wasn't the Reapers, as you might expect. It was Cerberus. The mechanical reason for why we don't spend the majority of the game fighting Reapers is that Reapers aren't very fun to fight. They're not awful, they're not actively terrible, but Cerberus are just a better designed enemy. There's more for the player to do, they are more fun to fight. And BioWare realises this. Let's unpack this a bit. The Reaper enemy lineup is relatively limited. You have Husks, the cannon fodder melee enemies. You have Cannibals, the ranged basic enemy. You have Marauders, a stronger ranged enemy. You have Brutes, a big tough melee mini-boss. You have Ravagers, a big tough artillery mini-boss. And you have Banshees, an enemy we haven't seen yet that is very big, very tough, very fast, has a very strong ranged attack and an instant kill melee attack it just uses all the time. Husks, Cannibals and Marauders work well together, they have a lot of interplay. Marauders can make the other two tougher to kill by covering them in armor plates. Husks force the player to get out of cover and move away from the enemy. Cannibals do the heavy lifting with their grenades and firepower. Brutes, Ravagers and Banshees don't fit so well into this dynamic. All three are physically very big, so it's hard to fit one of them into an encounter with too many Husks or Cannibals, never mind 2 or 3. The Brutes' pathfinding in particular would really struggle. They're also very dangerous, so adding even one of them could tip the balance against the player. It's fairly rare to encounter, say, a Brute and a Ravager in the same battle until towards the end of the game. They're also just really tough. All three have armour for their health bar, which is resistant to damage, particularly shotguns and submachine guns. The Brute has armour plates that can deflect shots, and the Banshee even has an anti-power shield so that it can ignore biotics and tech. They take a long time to kill. This kind of applies to the other 3 enemies as well, since the main Reaper power, the armour plating, is just sheer brute force making enemies harder to kill. In a sense, fully half the Reaper lineup is very costly in a design sense. Having a Brute or a Ravager in an encounter is a major design decision that prevents including other potential options in the same arena. It can make Reaper encounters feel a little flat. Once you've taken out the centerpiece enemy, the encounter is over, and you won't really see much interesting behaviour from the other enemies. It's also worth noting that, again, half the Reaper enemies are melee based and are very good at forcing the player out of cover. Even in a game as forgiving and generous as Mass Effect 3, it's still fundamentally crippling the player. You're vulnerable to enemy fire, it's harder to aim and shoot well, you're often moving backwards or sideways into an area you can't see, so you can't assess the risks. This isn't to say that the Reapers are actively unfun. I actually quite like the Ravager. There's a nice risk-reward mechanic built into popping the sacks, where you can make the Ravager more vulnerable at the cost of spawning swarmers, which are good at disrupting the player and making them vulnerable to the Ravager's artillery barrages. But let's compare the Reapers to Cerberus. Cerberus has a greater variety of enemy types. Troopers are your basic ranged attacker. Centurions are a tougher version that lay down smoke grenades to hinder player fire. Guardians are a slow assault specialist that's very tough in a head-on attack, but vulnerable to flanking. Turrets and their engineer buddies are extremely lethal stationary enemies that can lock down an area of the battlefield. Nemesis snipers, which we saw briefly in the Eden Prime mission, are high damage long range attackers with an intimidating laser sight and whine. Phantoms, which we haven't seen yet, are powerful solo mini-boss enemies with a strong ranged attack and an instant kill melee move. Atlas mechs are very tough, very powerful, very slow mini-boss enemies with smoke grenades and telegraphed attacks. A lot of these enemies work well together. Guardians and Phantoms, and to a lesser extent the Atlas, force players to move away out of cover, which leaves them open to Troopers, Centurions, Turrets and Nemesis. The same goes the other way. Turrets and Nemesis can keep a player's head down long enough for a Phantom or Guardian to reach their position. But although we have the same mechanic as we saw with the Reapers, it happens a lot less. Guardians and Phantoms don't show up in the same numbers as Husks do, and both take less damage to kill than Brutes or Banshees. In general, the Cerberus lineup is actually quite fragile. Most enemies have health, and the only really tough enemy, the Atlas, is incredibly slow and easy to avoid. I know in the videos it looks like it takes me 2 shots to kill Troopers, but that's only because I haven't upgraded my weapons, saving up for Black Widow. Most Cerberus enemies are quite small, which sounds like a trite thing to say, but it means it's very easy to mix in multiple enemy types into one encounter. You can have engineers and guardians, nemesis and phantoms, troopers and centurions, lots of variety. Of the enemies, the phantom is probably the most dangerous. Of the others, while they have very clearly defined strengths, they also have very clearly defined weaknesses. The turret does huge damage, but it can't move and fires very predictably. The Atlas is big and scary, but doesn't pose any real threat if you don't lose your head. Most important though, is that the player is given loads of options when dealing with Cerberus. When a marauder coats his buddies in armor plating, the only real recourse you have is to just blast that armor off. You just got to shoot that enemy more. When a Guardian gets his shield all up in your face, you can shoot him through the letterbox, use biotic powers to take his shield away from him, get around him and shoot him in the back, hit him with enough fire and powers to just stagger him and shoot him while he's open, or use a piercing weapon or ammo to just shoot through the shield. Options! You have options! The basic Cerberus enemy mechanics encourage engagement with the combat system as a whole, rather than just making the player's life more difficult. An engineer arrives on the battlefield. You can kill him now, or wait for him to start placing a turret, and shoot a little turret kit to blow it up, and him as well, for extra damage. An Atlas lays down some smoke grenades to cover his trooper friends. You can blind fire through the smoke and hope to hit someone, or you can aim at the Atlas still visible above the clouds, or move to another location and get a clean shot off. This is better, this is more fun than what you generally get with the Reapers, or the Geth, or the Collectors for that matter. And that is the mechanical reason why we spend as much time fighting Cerberus as we do fighting Reapers. Okay, so in the previous video I spent a lot of time telling you how to enjoy Mass Effect 3. I don't want to belabor the point, but I don't think I've been clear about what I'm doing here. Mass Effect 3 is not a puzzle box. This playthrough isn't going to solve Mass Effect 3. It's not a case of me decoding all the themes and subtext and other abstract stuff I talked up as so amazing previously. And it's not a case of you at the end suddenly saying, "Oh wow, now that you've explained it, I can see how Mass Effect 3 is secretly what I always wanted." That's not going to happen, and nobody wants that to happen. This isn't going to be like the Mask of the Betrayer thread, where I say, this is what this bit means, and this Merkel dude is really awesome, and everyone nods and agrees. I don't really want that, and I'm fairly certain it's not going to happen with this game anyway, certainly not anymore. Once or twice in the thread, I've used the phrase viability, not validity, like I'm some kind of bloody mystic or something. I'll probably expand on it in another video, but the short version is that I'm mostly interested in things that are useful or interesting, rather than things that are true. So even though I sound really authoritative and say things quite strongly, and don't use the normal modifiers to downplay my certainty, I am aware that there are many different approaches you can take to a text, many different things you can get out of it. To me this is just default knowledge, you don't need to say it, everyone knows. I'm not going to tell you the hidden truth to Mass Effect 3, like people seem to think before. "Oh, I never thought about it that way, you're so right." Well, I'm not. You didn't think about it that way because you're not me. You thought about it your way, which is fine. The way I think about it is rooted specifically in my personal experiences. It's not the true reading of Mass Effect 3, it's just my reading. I hope you like it, that would be really awesome. But you shouldn't feel obligated to accept it just because I say so. Some of the best posts in the thread, the ones I like the most, are the ones telling me that I'm wrong and why. That stuff I love. I think it's really cool and interesting to see what people think and how they think about it. In a lot of ways, this playthrough should be considered not as a summary, but as an addition to the ongoing cultural conversation around Mass Effect 3. That's why I keep prompting you with subtopic discussion points in the updates. But part of all that means that I am going to be advancing a very particular line of argument, my reading. And if it's going to work, I need people to be on board with what I'm doing. I need people to follow along with the way I'm thinking, an exaggerated form of what I actually think. Because a lot of what follows isn't going to make sense if you don't. The next bit in particular I think is very non-intuitive if you think the text, the characters and setting and plot is the most important part of a story. I don't want to get all the way to the end of this and have someone ask, what about this character? What about this event? Because I'm not going to have anything for them. So the previous video is a barrier, a deliberate hurdle on my part to help people decide if I'm saying something they can put up with. If you can accept all the stuff I said before, not as true, not as something you should believe, but as a perspective for the purposes of this argument, if you can take it on, not as something that is true, but as something that is useful, then I think we can go in some interesting directions. Right? This is what I need you to do for me. I need you to believe, or pretend to believe, that characters and setting and plot don't matter in themselves. I need you to prioritise subtext and themes and all that other stuff. I'm not going to be able to give you what you want if you don't. And, well, this is sort of in the OP, you knew what approach I was going to take.
Commander, come with us. We're a shell of what we were. We could use the help.
Send me the nav point. I'll see what I can do.
Thank you. That'll give us time to do a little recon. See what we're up against.
Victus, you have a second chance here. Make their sacrifice count.
Understood, Commander. Hope to see you at the rendezvous.
Cerberus bomb. What the hell is going on, Commander? And what do the Turians have to do with it?
Coordinates Victus gave me place it in the Kelphic Valley. It's a heavily populated area. That's all I know.
My gut says something's not right here.
What do you suggest?
Get the Primarch to come clean.
Should we alert the Krogan military?
I'd wait. We're in the dark here. Krogan-Turian relations are fragile until the genophage is cured. Let's not push it. And how about this bomb? How many troops does Cerberus have on this?
No idea. All I know is we can't have them detonating that bomb.
Keep me in the loop. Hack it out.
Primarch Victus.
Impressive work on Tuchanka. I'm grateful that...
Why didn't you tell me about the Cerberus bomb? Why hide that? What else are you keeping from me?
I have nothing for you.
For our alliance to work, I need to trust you.
Our friendship is new, Commander. Would you trust me with information that puts your people, puts Earth, at risk?
Why would I jeopardize our alliance by lying to you now? Doesn't make sense.
Decisions like these weigh heavy on me. When I was a general, I could pass them up the chain of command. But now, I'm all I've got. Know what I mean?
Sure. And?
And that's all. Wait, there is one more thing, Commander. Thank you for saving my son.
Normandy Shuttle, this is Lieutenant Victus with the 9th Platoon. Do you copy?
We hear you, 9th Platoon.
We're approaching the bomb site, Commander. Getting bounced around pretty bad.
This is as close as we get, Lieutenant. Look for somewhere to set your platoon down.
Copy that.
Talk to me about this Cerberus bomb.
It's not Cerberus, Commander. It's... Turian.
What do you mean, Turian?
It was planted centuries ago, after the Krogan rebellions. The bomb was a safeguard against another galactic war.
Brutal, but it makes a certain kind of sense. Put the Krogan down hard if they tried anything.
Makes sense. Couldn't trust the Krogan to play nice. But right now, we focus on disarming that bomb.
Yes, but Cerberus found it. Detonation means all-out war between my people and the Krogan.
Right. Where is it?
Those buildings ahead. Cerberus brought equipment to dig it up. The 9th platoon will cover your flank, Commander.
With all this activity, the Krogan have to know something's up.
Then we can't fail, Commander.
Copy that, Lieutenant.
So, let's talk about the game's focus on a narrative level. Like I said before, we only spend half the time fighting against Reaper forces, the rest of the time we're fighting Cerberus or Geth. Even when we are fighting Reapers, we're usually doing it on the outskirts of the war. Tutonka, Utuku, Lessus are all on the fringes of the main conflict. Only 4 missions. The prologue, Monet, Thessia and the last mission bring us anywhere near the Reaper War, and only the very last mission could be said to be the heart of the battle, the focus of the war. Mass Effect 3 comes in for a lot of criticism over this. For a game that's supposed to be about the Reaper War, where the main plot hook is that the Reapers have invaded the galaxy, we spend so very, very little time actually seeing this war happen. It largely occurs off-screen, and we only hear about it second-hand, through conversations with Hackett and Anderson, through emails, through conversations overheard on the Citadel. I know show don't tell is overused and often used incorrectly, but you could say it applies here. BioWare are fundamentally failing to show us the much-touted Reaper War that all this, the whole game, the whole series, is supposed to be about. This is a completely true, 100% accurate statement. Some people have taken the argument further. They say it's not just Mass Effect 3 that's to blame. Mass Effect 2 doesn't pull its plot weight either. The Reapers barely even figure into the story. There's, the one mission on a derelict Reaper and the final mission in the Collector base. That's it. Most of the characters are preoccupied with other things, with their own personal issues. The Reapers basically stand still, narratively speaking. The only development is the very final shot where they all wake up and start moving towards the galaxy. So the argument is that Mass Effect 2 wastes its time on its characters and on Mac Walter's pet concepts, Cerberus and crime boss Aria, and it has no time left over to do anything with the Reapers. The usual proposed solution is that the Reapers invade in Mass Effect 2, and the game covers the darkest points of the Reaper War, so that Mass Effect 3 can cover the miraculous turnaround and the final victory over the bad guys. This is also a completely true, 100% accurate statement. Not the hypothetical solution, that's just a what if, but the idea that Mass Effect 2 doesn't show much of the Reapers is true. Almost nobody takes the argument to its end point, that Mass Effect 1 barely features the Reapers either. In fact, I'm probably the only one to suggest it. Mass Effect 1 is chiefly about chasing Spectre gone bad Saren Arterius around the galaxy, uncovering the mystery of the Protheans, and the Reapers spend most of the game off-screen. They're the baddies in the warning, often spoken about but never seen, told, not shown. Which is great, it's perfect, because it creates that scene where Shepard confronts Sovereign on Vermeer and realises that Sovereign is a Reaper, the Citadel is a Reaper trap, the galaxy we spent the whole game exploring is a Reaper tool. It's something straight out of a horror movie, you know? The Reapers were here all along. The killer is calling from inside the house. But for the majority of the game, the Reapers aren't really there. We're dealing with cat spores and minions, Saren and the Geth. Just like the Collectors in the sequel, just like the Reaper skirmishers in the third game. Nobody really minds this because Mass Effect 1 is setting up the whole trilogy. It's, setting up the universe and the galaxy, and the Reapers are involved just enough to do that. Fine, I agree, not arguing with that. Once more, a completely true, 100% accurate statement.
Damn. That thing's gonna do some damage. How the hell they hide that?
It must have been far enough underground to stay hidden. Cerberus had to dig it out.
I hope Victus knows what he's doing. We won't get a second chance. We gotta move, Shepard.
Here's the thing. We've got this game, this trilogy, that's purportedly about the Reapers, about their galactic invasion. But they're always off-screen or elsewhere in Mass Effect 3. They barely feature in Mass Effect 2. They're a secondary plot element in Mass Effect 1, fodder for the twist on Virmire. You've got this trilogy where 2/3 of the series, if not the whole thing, only nominally involves the Reapers. And you want to say that this trilogy really is about the Reapers? It's just not very good at showing it? To me, this would suggest that Mass Effect isn't really about the Reapers. This suggests that I'm looking in the wrong place if I want to understand Mass Effect. That if I keep going down this path where it's all about the Reaper plot thread, I'm going to be disappointed. So what we need to do is not look at what Mass Effect isn't about, but look at what it is about. What do we actually do in these games? What do we actually see and talk about? It's the galaxy. Not the galaxy in relation to the Reapers, not the galaxy under attack by the Reapers. We see the galaxy as it is. We spend a lot of time with Rex, Mordin, Grunt, Tuchanka on the genophage, the lasting repercussions of an act of cultural imperialism that resulted in a literal sterility plague and what is essentially a species-wide suicide pact. We spend a lot of time with Tali, Legion, the Flotilla, Rannoch, on the Quarian-Geth conflict. Again, something that had massive long-term impacts like a galactic diaspora, institutional racism, religious schism, body horror and metaphorical infanticide. We spend a lot of time with Miranda, Jacob, Jack the Elusive Man, on Cerberus, the dark side of the Systems Alliance, the shadow government that represents the ruthless selfishness of humanity. And related to that, we spend a lot of time with Garrus, Thane, Samara, on Omega, Thessia, on the corruption of the wider galaxy, the seedy criminal underbelly, the terrible secret of the Asari. You may be thinking, yeah, but that's not what the plot is about. That's not what the characters say it's all about. This is why I spent a whole video talking down text and talking up subtext. But if you insist, I do think BioWare left us a few clues. Think back to the end of the Earth prologue. What do you remember? What happened? What actually happened? The Normandy rescues Anderson and Shepard. Shepard runs up to the Normandy, jumps on board. Anderson stands there on the surface of the Earth in the centre of the Reaper War, looking up at Shepard. Shepard stands there on the deck of the Starship Normandy, looking down at Anderson. Shepard says, "Come on," and Anderson says, "No. I'm staying here to fight the Reapers. You need to go get the other species ready. You need to talk to the Council." And Shepard flies away into the galaxy in his spaceship, and it's Anderson that stays on Earth to fight the Reapers. This is Mass Effect 3 telling us quite explicitly that the story is not about the Reapers. This story is not about the Reaper War. That happens to Anderson. Shepard's story is about the galaxy. Our story is about the galaxy. We can go even further back to Mass Effect 1, to that one really good bit everyone likes, the conversation with Sovereign on Virmire. Everyone knows this bit, everyone knows what he says. "My kind transcends your very understanding. We are each a nation, independent, free of weakness. You cannot even grasp the nature of our existence." This isn't just boasting, this isn't just Sovereign talking smack to us. Remember, in the methodology we are all consciously using right now, the characters are tools for authors to communicate with us. This is BioWare telling us that the Reapers just aren't that important. They aren't what Mass Effect is really about. The major revelation is not so much that Sovereign is here and alive, that Saren's flagship is a Reaper, but that the Reapers were here and alive all along, in the Citadel, in the mass relays, in the very structure of the galaxy. That is the terrible revelation at the heart of Mass Effect 1, and this is the terrible revelation at the heart of this playthrough. The Reaper War plot is a lie, a red herring. It doesn't matter. The Reapers exist as a tool in order to bring the true conflicts, which we can largely subdivide into the Genophage, the Quarians and Cerberus, into being. There's a bit more to it than that. They're not so transparent a plot device as that, but that's what they're for. That's the function in the narrative. And a reading that focuses on the Reaper War is falling for the illusion, and I think fails to realise what Mass Effect is actually driving at. Now, there's a lot more to say on this, but this is the foundation for the rest of my argument. Just like the last video, I need you to be on board for this. Even if you disagree, you need to pretend that you agree, just for a little bit. Because if we can understand the meaning of the 3 plot arcs from Mass Effect 3, then I hope we will be able to understand the meaning of the Reapers. But we can only do that if we discard the ostensible plot for the sake of the story.
Commander, I've got radio chatter coming in from Krogan forces planetside. Sounds like they started sweeping out the remaining Cerberus troops. Hate to be the guy who told the Krogan about that surprise package. You get out alright? Sounds like it got ugly down there.
The Turians took a lot of casualties, Joker. The Primarch's son included.
Understood, Commander. Joker out.
He never hesitated. Whatever he was before, he'll be remembered for this.
What will the Turians think about this, Garrus?
Hard to say. Sacrifice in war is expected. He did us proud, but we're a hard bunch to please. Living your life for the cause. Society first, platoon first. It's all just expected.
He did what he had to do when it counted.
Yes. Yes, he did.
Good work on Tuchanka, Commander. Stopping that bomb prevented the war between the Turians and the Krogan. We can't afford that kind of division right now.
Joker said the Krogan are recovering the bomb.
They moved in, won't allow Turians to send in recovery crews to help.
Understandable.
The situation is fragile at the moment. With Reeve and the Primarch aboard the Normandy, you've got a situation brewing. We don't have a solid alliance between those two yet. Keep the peace, Commander. That's an order.
Yes, sir.
Hack it out.
We couldn't risk another galactic war with the Krogan.
The Genophage wasn't enough? You needed another way to keep your pets chained?
The decision was made hundreds of years ago. So much has changed.
You still didn't tell us about the bomb, coward.
Hey! The Reapers are out there destroying the galaxy, and you want to fight about this? Primarch, you had a bomb on Tuchanka. And Reeve, in the Turians' place, you would have done the same damn thing.
Commander?
It's over! His own son died today, making this right.
Please, Commander. It's all right.
All right, Commander, I agree. We have stronger enemies to face.
We do.
I understand your reservations before, Commander. But I hope you now understand the secrecy.
You kept this a secret and then put your son in charge? He couldn't handle it.
Yes. You're right, Commander. It was a mistake not to trust you. I know that now. My son, He died with the respect of his men. I wanted to thank you for that. His sacrifice will be recorded in the histories of the 9th Platoon. Something any father would be proud of.
Yes, sir.